What's going on, everybody? This is Travis Witherspoon from Carter Capital. This is another live episode of Trade with Travis. Hopefully, everybody's doing very well on this Tuesday morning. As the market is about to open up in the next few minutes for its indices and stocks and everything else like that, I wanted to make sure that I end up getting on here just like we end up doing pretty much a couple times each and every week, so everybody can be able to get an idea about what I'm looking for, the trades that I've actually been in, help you out on your trades, obviously, so I can be able to help you analyze and everything else like that for us being able to see it, and being able to talk about what's happening with the overall direction of the market. We was able to point out a couple things with Bitcoin last week. Was able to point out a couple things with DAX and US 30 and everything else like that. End up bringing in a lot of great returns. Now, all we want to do is just basically manage those returns and be able to capitalize on the momentum that we're actually getting with all these pairs. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm not a CTA, so I'm not going to tell you whether to buy or to sell. What I'm going to do is teach you education, and from that education, you can be able to make your own informed decision. I understand that forex trading involves risk. It involves risk of being able to make money, also involves risk of being able to lose money. So please keep that in mind. And understand that past performance is not indicative of future results, which means that if you end up making money yesterday, it's not promised that you're going to end up making money today. Why do I keep on getting that? That doesn't make any sense to me one bit. Um, but like always, what we end up doing is taking a look at trading markets only, meaning that the market has been giving a direction, and then after that, it's in an R2 or R3 ranking. We've talked about that before. We like being able to find time frame alignment, meaning that the weekly and the daily are trading in the same direction. We want to be able to see, once we end up having that time frame alignment, that the market is either overbought or oversold. We want to come down to the stochastic in the same direction of where the market is actually going. And then after that, we want to look for a catalyst. A catalyst is broken down into a counter trend line break, any type of economic news that is actually a part of that while being able to get placed in. Now, like always, when it comes down to any trading that we end up doing, the biggest thing that you want to be able to pay attention to more than anything else is making sure that your equity management is done correctly. If the equity management is not correct when it comes down to being able to look at these numbers and it doesn't feel well, then guess what? We're not going to take the trade. So there we go. All right. Now, with that being said, last week what we ended up doing was we ended up taking a look at we end up taking a look at the indexes first. Obviously, that will probably end up being a good idea to kind of see what's happening with the indexes right now. That's what we end up doing. Then after that, we're going to forex pairs from there and take a look at what's happening with the weekly. Um, from the Dow Jones, what we're seeing is that the market has been pushing bearish as the D extension that's expected to be able to be hit at 27,475. That's a long way down from this position. We're talking about 3,500 points at this particular point. And actually the last 3 weeks, we've had strong movement to the downside. So to take a look at that, you go to the daily. What you end up seeing is that we end up bouncing right off of 27,780. And then after that, started pushing up again toward the upside. Now, I end up calling this out with our Carter Academy folk, and we end up talking about how if this market end up breaking out of this overall consolidation zone that you're going to see in the 2 hour, then the market is going to keep on going bullish, and it wouldn't surprise me if the market ended up popping up to the upside, and that's exactly what ended up happening yesterday. Now, remember, when the market ends up breaking out, typically they'll end up being a retest. And if you look at the Don Chain trend channel and you look at everything else like that, all of the signs are still telling you that the market is pretty much bearish. So it would not surprise me one bit if the market does fall down to be bearish and continue on this overall trend for its overall movement. But we have to keep in mind if the market stays above 30,250, then the market may end up pushing back up and completing the D extension at 30,469. Now, when you look at volume profile, what you end up noticing is that we end up breaking out of this high volume node, and then after that, start to push up in this little gap area. And that's the reason why the market ended up having that big explosion, because we didn't have that many people actually fighting with the market to be able to get in. Now, it did not complete the D extension, but from this point, it was literally about 95% of the way there. So I am going to assume that that is a completion of the D extension. But if we take a look at the 15-minute, the question is, can we get back in? And we're looking at a little bit of a counter trend line break. I actually am kind of happy about seeing this candlestick formation right here. And this is actually making me a little bit more interested in being able to take a buy. I think I'm going to end up taking a quick scalp on this overall play. Only up to the D extension if we can be able to get it. Let's see. Um, it has to stay above this overall candlestick formation. If it doesn't, over this counter trend line break. If it stays above, Then after that, I look at being able to get in for its buying. If not, then I just wait and then treat the market as I have been treating, which is bearish. Um, Now, the downside trade would not be a scalp. The downside trade would end up being more of a swing trade when it comes down to that. Let's take a look at what's happening with the stochastic real quick before I end up making any other rash decisions. Um, so stochastic is 15 minutes in the buy zone. We talked about that counter trend line break to the upside. We may end up getting that. Let's take a look at that from a 15-minute perspective. If I end up doing this, let's say if I end up taking that quick scalp trade to the upside, let's say if it does play out, my stop loss will end up being below the overall past resistance of this consolidation. It'll probably end up being right around 30,230. So it'll be 100-point difference if I end up doing that. Let me check and see if the equity management makes sense. Because if it doesn't make sense, then I'm not going to take it either way. What's going on, Casey? Hope everything's going well with you. Actually, if I take it right here, 107 for I'm not even going to consider that. Um, yeah, I'm not even going to consider that. It's a 1-to-1. I don't like 1-to-1 trades. If you've been around me a long time, you know that I don't like 1-to-1 trades. So I'm going to stay away from this. I'm just going to wait for this market to be able to have that high price that we want to the upside, and then after that, look to be able to sell it. And I just treat it like that. And who knows? This may end up being that high price that we're actually kind of looking for. We end up talking about this from a daily perspective that I felt like this market was going to end up going all the way down to 27,000. So let's see. Do we have a subfield that we can work off of? We can go with a 2-hour subfield right here. So I'm going to place a 2-hour subfield right there. Casey displacing Euro Yen. He wants me to take a look at that. Absolutely. Like always a pleasure talking to you, Casey. Let's see. I gotta get all these markets out. What's going on? I'm gonna say Zach. If that's fine with you, I hope everything's going well with you. Thanks for being here to pop in. I'm doing great. Just trying to see if we can find some overall pairs to make some money off of today, like always. Um, but I ended up taking a trade on DAX last night. It actually ended up popping up, hitting the and popped up and making money for me earlier this morning. It hit the extension based off of a high pocket zone. We'll talk about that in a second. So that was the first 2-hour D extension I ended up hitting. We had a new fractal. We didn't have our newest fractal until right here. So here goes your C. There goes your D extension right there. So currently right now we're at a 236 type of trade. If this market keeps on going up at this particular point. No, hold on. Yeah, that's right. We have a sub movement that could go all the way down to 28, 612. Let me check and see if that's a pivot from on my actual other systems. That a pivot position? What was it? 28, 612, 28, 612. Actually, that wouldn't even hit support 3 of today. That would actually end up hitting. Okay. All right, cool. All right. So once again, I'm still kind of mapping out. I want to map out this. I'm going to end up mapping out this overall counter trend line trade to the downside if this market ends up breaking inside of this consolidation again to the downside. We already talked about an upside trade that we could be able to do for as a scalp. Please keep that in mind. It could necessarily go back up there, but we'll take a look at it based off of the 15-minute. If that does happen, then obviously we had ideas from that. It's not a 1 to 2.3 trade. It's a 1-to-1. I don't like that in particular, but it is something to pay attention to. So here's the trend line that needs to be. Here's the trend line that needs to be broken before doing anything for the move. And I'm just going to wait when it comes down to that. But if it does break a counter trend line break to the downside, in which it actually kind of has, what I'll end up doing is I'll look at being able to sell it, place my stop loss above the swing high of this one. And then after that, see if we can ride it all the way down to our long-term positions from there. US yen, which I'll take a look at that one as well. So US 30, not doing anything going. I'm going to take a look at y'all pairs real quick, and then after that, we'll move forward with everything else. Euro yen. Let's see, try this. Chase, it just hit the weekly D extension. Are you okay? Entry at 140. Entry at 141. Stop loss to ton. Price target at 144. 2 to 1 risk ratio. Let's see, 144.47. 144.47. Case of the D extension has already been hit, so I would say that, from a weekly perspective. So please keep that in mind. Um, from a daily perspective, this does have a fractal. This does have a new fractal that you can work off of. It'll be right here. Try it one more time. With the D extension of 145.64. So yes, that could necessarily work. We do have a strong counter trend line break. Um, I think that you're in a good. I think that you're in a very good position because of two reasons. One, the market ended up breaking out of consolidation, retesting it, then pushing it up to the upside. The second thing is that the daily's in the buy zone. You have a full counter trend line break because you have both of those things working for you in your favor. I think that this is a very good trade to maintain and keep on going with, for it being able to take to the upside. I wouldn't change anything of what you end up doing. Just make sure that you just rock that. Make sure that you end up protecting yourself at all times. Obviously, when it comes down to certain moves that can happen. Like, remember the 2 hours in the sell zone. The one okay. Casey, what do you see? Just answer the question. What do you see as a potential formation? Let me see if you can get it before I say it. 126.885. Okay, when you're saying, are you saying buy or sell? Exactly. Are you saying buy or sell? Okay, Casey, let me answer that question for you. The market's in the market getting very close to being in the sell zone, and it's basically at the highs of where this market ended up completing a weekly D extension. Because of that, the one thing that I will be fearful for is a um, let's see. The one thing that I would be fearful for would be a double top. I mean, not double top. Yeah, double top in pattern. Um, I will be kind of fearful of that actually showing up and being able to make a move. There goes your first top. They end up hitting the weekly D extension. Then after that, pushing back up, and then going from there. Yeah, I know you got in. I know you got in on Sunday, and I know that you done written this up for a very good price. I truly do believe that you got in a very good area. Um, the thing that the thing that I think you're trying to look to see is should you get out instead of trying to wait for these next little less than 80 something pips to be able to close out. Correct? I think that's what you're looking for to be able to kind of figure out. Either way, to answer to sum that up, so we can move on to the next pair. Obviously, that was the D extension. We're coming to the top of the D extension. If this market ends up rejecting hard, then yes, Casey, I would say get out. And I'll probably just look to be able to cover up profits and be able to go from there. Um, if if this market breaks above and turns into a support, and after that, obviously, I think that answers the question pretty much. It's going to fall. I know it's going to end up falling. I think the biggest thing is how much would you want to be able to give up? Like if it breaks past the actual D extension, which was this shallow area with a very strong move, then I would say, yeah, I may end up considering being able to get out. But like I said, there's a potential double top that could happen. So look and see how the market kind of reacts to that area. If it reacts in a very strong negative way, then I would look at being able to make a decision from there. Okay, US 30, US 30. I just seen this. Talked about that from a break up to the upside. There goes your counter trend line break up to the upside. If you're looking at being able to make that same trade that we were just talking about, that is a strong move from being at 298 and going up 493. I wonder what CNBC ended up saying. Um, we have about we have a little less than about 60 points left. For me, that took me out of risk versus reward. I already talked about that just earlier, but for anybody else that would like to be able to scalp that, then that could be an idea for us being able to get in. Let me take a look at USGN real quick. Zach, answer this question. I asked you it one time before, but I want to make sure that I'm being kind of clear. When you're looking at this, are you looking at buying or are you looking at selling? Okay. One more time for Zach. I'm going to ask him one more time, and then after that, move on. I just take a look at USGN just for looking at it. Zach, once again, are you looking at buying or selling? Okay. Everybody else. So what I'm going to end up looking at is this. Weekly is getting close to the buy zone. The market has being able to push back up. I'm actually kind of happy about that because that means that my gold trade should be back in profit. Um, well, actually, no, it actually should be very much not in profit. We look at it like that because Japanese yen and gold are basically going. Well, Japanese yen this week and typically gold kind of matches that same move, or vice versa. What I mean. Um, so we have a strong move to the upside. There's a D extension that's expected to be here at 142.38. Currently, right now, we take a look at it from a daily perspective. We can see that the market is still bullish as well. We do have a strong counter trend line break in. It's done basically use this area as a natural support of being able to push up to the upside as well. We'll take a look at this from a 2 hour perspective. We can see that the market is just a little bit overbought, but there goes that somewhat of a head and shoulders pattern right here, and I truly mean somewhat. Um, and the market has broken out of the overall position. Now, from this standpoint, we said I invested at 126. 126,885. The market's gone up. Obviously, that's a buy. The question is, what do you think? I should wait or not more? Okay. We go back based off of the daily fibs. Daily fibs already hit a D extension right here. The market's going up to 144.42, which kind of matches up with the weekly D extension that's right around 142. I would the area where I would consider basically cutting bait with it is two areas in particular. One, because this market did not retrace all the way down to the 236, you may end up seeing a little bit of resistance right here, actually in this area, which is the 127. Typically, that's an 80-20 rule. You may end up seeing that you may have a little bit of resistance from there. Now, if it blows out of that position and it keeps on going, then after that, that would be the position where I'll be like, okay, well, you may be good enough just to be able to ride that out and stay in it until 142. So you were kind of in that warning area because the market didn't have a strong retracement. But I think that you end up being in I would say this, see how the market kind of reacts to 136.16 before being able to make any other decision and being able to go from there. Let's see. There goes a breakout. There goes a retest of US 30 right now. This is better risk versus reward. I still don't know if I would want to get into it, but um, that is a better risk versus reward based off of this position. I'll limp into it. Let's see. I'm gonna go uh, just for trading perspectives. I'm just gonna go with a small micro lot and be able to trade this. Take profit will end up being 34.69, which is the daily fibs. Resistance two on this one is at 555. The problem is we're basically in a high pocket area. If you go back to what's happening with the weekly, go back to what's happening with the daily, we are kind of in a high volume note, kind of. Let's see, take a look at it again. Not necessarily when I'm looking at it from this perspective. Okay, got a little bit of area to run. Um, let's say if this thing gets on a big bull run, it could go all the way back up to 32. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it kind of gets stuck right there, 32 150 before kind of pushing up. But we'll get off of this one. Hold on, I need to finish. Need to finish what I was saying. Stop loss is going to end up being below this last area where the market ended up breaking out. I'm going to say 30,348. So that'd be about 50 points. That will kind of work out a little bit better. All right, let's see, 30. Hold on. 3348. Take profit of 3469. 69. I'm going to be quick with this one. Yeah, this may end up being a quick scalp, or it may end up knocking me out very quickly. I'd rather do it like that and just kind of limp in and see if it's going to end up remaining to be up, or if it's just going to take me out quick. It may end up taking me out quick based off what I'm looking at now. But that'll only be a $30 risk compared to a right around $60 reward, $70 reward. But it's got to hold. So on that one, once again, that is a limp bet more than anything else. We had a breakout. We got a little bit of a retest. If this market breaks below this overall large candle that started in a little bit of the wick, then it'll take me out. If not, then could go up to 469, and then after that move from there. Let's take a look at the rest of the pairs real quick. Let's get into the big three. Let's see what's happening with those, and then kind of let me know what I need to do with everything else. Once again, that was just a limp bet to be able to get in. If it works out well, then great. That's more of a scalp trade, like we talked about earlier. If it doesn't, then oh well. Then we go from that. Not overplaying my hand on that one. All right, so U.S. dollar index market ended up hitting the extension, pushed up towards the weekly, came all the way up here to the upside. We do not have a fractal high yet off the weekly. Now we do have a area where the market found resistance at. Man, that's perfect. We talked about 80-20 rules just a second ago when it came down to euro yen, kind of like what was Casey was looking at. And this is an example of what an 80-20 rule kind of does. So we can see that the market ended up pushing up. There goes our B right there. Fell all the way down to this area right here, which was the 236. It never fell back down to the 382, which was 12,531. Because of that, typically what happens is if the market ends up breaking the B to the upside, you end up seeing that it will have a little bit of resistance right around the 127. The 127 was at 12,946. We can see that the market ended up basically rejecting right around that area and then falling down. Now, a couple of things to be able to go off of that, to be able to extend what I just said when it comes down to that information. If the market does have an 80-20 rule and it does fall to the downside, then that means that there's two areas where the market could potentially fall down to typically. One will be the previous B at 12,780. And then after that, the next area will actually end up being the 382 or below, which end up being at 12,530. So if this market does fall down based off of the overall strength, then we could see it fall all the way down to 12,530 before actually being able to make a push to the upside. Now that will match up with what's happening with the weekly, because the weekly has hit a D extension, and we do need to see a fractal be created before being able to do anything else. So there you go, right there. I would not do anything off of this trade right now, at least not yet, for United States dollar indexes. So U.S. payers are probably end up kind of staying away from as well. But that kind of goes into what's happening with the U.S. yen as well. So you may end up seeing that it may end up being an area just to be able to get out based off of what we just talked about with that. Let's go. U.S. oil. Now remember, when I'm talking about U.S. oil, I'm kind of correlating that with the Canadian dollar as well. Nice, got 500 coins. Cool. Let's see. Take a look at what's happening with the weekly. Weekly on U.S. oil, we end up seeing that the market has had hit to the extensions. Market has went into consolidation and broke out to the upside. Now, remember, typically when you end up having a breakout, there will be a retest. This market retested and failed horribly. So I'm going to end up saying that the weekly is bearish right now from the short-term perspective. You take a look at it from a daily perspective, the market is in the buy zone for the stochastic, and we're starting to see this market kind of have a little bit of a U-turn up. Long term, we know that the market is expected to be able to go up because of, think about it, oil supply and demand, and what's happening with what will be happening with overall travel costs and everything else. So it would not surprise me if the market remains to be able to push up bullish um, based off of what we're seeing off the weekly. However, we're still not in traveling months. We are particularly, but I think typically July, you end up seeing that the market may end up starting to have a little bit of a better push to the upside. So currently, right now, with this one, because the weekly is pointing to the downside, daily is pointing to the downside. I would look at downside trades, but the market is in the buy zone, so I'm going to stay away. I want to see this market do this first before actually considering it. I want to see it go up, reject off of this area, and then fall down again. I would like to be able to see that before making a move off of that pair. Okay, so oil, I'm not going to do anything with. Let's take a look at gold. Speaking of that, anybody that ended up having a win today for his trades, anybody that ended up having a win last week for his trades, and you want to be shouted out, make sure that you end up just popping in your trade, talk about it, so I can be able to shout you out on that. Trading is hard, man. I will say that trading can be very hard. Trading can be very frustrating as well. So you got to celebrate your wins. Go weekly to the downside. What we're looking at is this market um, ended up having a downside move, fell down to the 786, bounced up from there, broke a inner trend line, and then after that rejected off of the outer trend line. Now, what that means is typically if it rejects off the outer trend line, then you may end up seeing the market start to push to the downside. Now, if you look at it from a daily perspective, that same consolidation that we've seen on U.S. based pairs, you're going to see that same consolidation in this as well when it comes down to gold. Now, does that surprise you any? No, it doesn't surprise me because the market's in the summertime, first off. Not a lot of people are going to end up placing in a lot of money to be able to invest in the summertime. It just doesn't happen like that. The market slows down. Um, um, but if you take a look at it from this perspective, the market is at support. We can see that the market could have a chance of being able to go to the upside based off its plan. We see that the market ended up rejecting, came back inside of the overall consolidation area, and then basically fell back in the middle. Here's the only thing that I don't like about this. What I've been noticing over the last, especially with indexes and metals sometimes as well, over the course of the last, I want to say year and a half, is that typically you would see that the market will end up doing something to the assumption of this. I'm going to do this in red. Market falls down. Or no, let's not do it in red. I'm going to do it in, I'll keep it in black. You'll see that the market will end up breaking a support. And then after that, typically you'll see the market basically retest around the bottom of this area, turning past support into a future resistance. Now, what I've been seeing when it comes down to most pairs is that, and I'm going to have this in blue. Jeez. I'm going to have this in black. Escape. Well, never mind. Okay, let me get this out the way. You see the market end up breaking down, and then after that, actually retesting at the midpoint now. And then from retesting at the midpoint of the overall consolidation, then you see that strong move to the downside. That's why this one could be kind of tricky. To be honest, I'm not going to do anything. I'm actually still in the trade at 1850. So I'm not going to do anything at this particular point because we're basically in that middle direction that both moves could happen. Both moves could happen. When the market is at support, it could push up to 1870 and could break out to the overall type of resistance. Or it could remain to be below this overall consolidation area. And if it breaks below, then after that, we have to consider that the market's going to end up falling down. I possibly may end up losing on this trade that I'm in. But both things could be true. But until we actually end up getting the direction, I'm not going to do anything off of gold either. Let's go back and check up on US 30. Okay, US 30 just made a trade into it. have a D extension or have a take profit position at 30,000, 30,469. Currently, right now, it's at 30,412, I believe, right now. It's done broke a counter trend line break. It ended up retesting. This is a 15-minute timer. We got bullets from the dime chain, bullets from the trend meter. Possibly, hopefully, it may end up hitting and being able to go from there. Is there any other? Is there any other pairs that anybody would like to be able to take a look at before we end up getting out of here? Any other pairs? Any other pairs that someone would like to be able to take a look at before we get out of here? Did we talk about? Oh, I didn't talk about DAX. German 40. We've been absolutely crushing. Um, so let's talk about what ended up happening from here. I'm working on. I'm looking at different indicators to be able to start using a little bit more. I just seen that this on in the indicator section. There's a trend line breaks with super G cloud. Um, I think it's just an Ikimoto and obviously trend lines. They do work out somewhat well. Um, if you take a look at it, I'm just trying to find something else I can be able to use, but I'm gonna hide this for a second. Get this out of the way. So market came from consolidation, broke out, ended up completing the D extension ended up completing the D extension at first when it came down to the downside moves. Fell back down to the support, in which was basically at point of control. From there, the market is pushed up to the 5-0, actually pushed up to the 618. From there, it's expected that this market could fall all the way down to 10,105. Okay. Um, so, with that being said, to me, the market is truly bearish. So obviously, we take a look at that. We take a look at this from a daily perspective. We can see that um, the market has broken out of an inner trend line and then after that, broken out of an outer trend line. Typically, once you end up seeing both of those happen, you end up having a breakout and a retest. So the first retest was kind of right here, but it didn't go all the way to the top. So I'm not going to treat that as a true retest. I think the true retest will only happen when the market ends up doing this, popping back up to the top, and then after that, go from there. Um, yeah, I like Ikimoto clouds. I just don't use them as much. It's just one of those things where it's not an eyesore, but I just don't necessarily use it as much. Um, I think you can get somewhat of the same out of just looking at just a regular moving average, and maybe that just might be the old talking me when it comes down to that. Yeah, let's see. The daily and the weekly are to the downside. We take a look at what's happening. I can see that the market is giving us a little bit of people actually getting out of this trade. I took a buy on this yesterday. Let me explain why I took a buy on this yesterday. Um, let's go to 1 hour. See if I can zoom in just a little bit and try to get some information. Okay, so what I end up doing, what I end up doing was this. I end up seeing that the market was showing a little bit of consolidation inside of this area right here. And it was basically, if you look at the volume nodes, it was basically not necessarily a high volume node, but it was just enough to be able to know that this strong consolidation would lead to a strong breakout once it ended up hitting a low volume node. So what I ended up doing was that I ended up I ended up getting into this trade after this market ended up breaking past 13,332. Once it ended up breaking past 13,332, my idea was that I want to get into this trade and get out as clean as possible so I don't have to worry about having to fight with anybody. So I just looked at what was the nearest high volume node and what was the lowest price in that area. The lowest price was right around 13,375. So I just ended up taking my buy and then traded up to 13,375 and end up getting out of that pair when it came down to that. Um, that's actually a very good thing. Because of that, I could sleep well and know that I ended up getting in a great trade. One, but two, I didn't have to fight with anybody because remember, anytime that you end up trading inside of a low volume pocket, you're basically fighting with a lot of people that are not trading in that area. So the market will just continuously move up until it ends up reaching another peak of area where you can be able to get in at, or a peak of area of people that are fighting inside of that area. So end up making about $500 off of that trade yesterday. Let me see. I don't know which chart it actually is on to where I can be able to show it. Um, but that's what ended up happening with that trade overall when it came down to that movement. Nas has just absolutely exploded and has completed the extension. Well, I'm sorry, completed resistance 3 moves to the upside. Let's talk about Nas real quick. And I think we'll end up with Nas today. I gotta actually tech their ass today. All right, so same deal. Weekly, the D extension is at 10,760. I do expect that the market will still fall down to that point. Okay, but daily, if you take a look at it, we can see that um, the market has basically fell down to this overall area of where we end up having a little bit of consolidation, not necessarily a pivot. It's just one of those areas of psychological areas, 11,500. So when this market fell down to this area, we end up having a little bit of pushback, and then after that, obviously, we have that strong move to the upside. Now, why is this significant? Why is this market basically exploding to the upside? Take a look at this from a 2-hour, and that should kind of make it a little bit easier to be able to understand. Just like how we end up talking about high volume nodes and low volume nodes when it came down to this point, essentially what you end up seeing is this. And I truly am starting to really love trades like this. You end up seeing a high volume node, and then after that, you end up seeing another high volume node. And you think about this, there's no pressure inside of this area at all. Because there's no pressure inside of that area at all, if this market does break out of this high volume area, at the peak of this high volume area, you see that you have significant low volume, and then after that, you have even lower volume of people that have been trading from there in over the past. Because of that, this market may end up, and dare I say, if it had the chance to, could push up all the way up to 12,475 if it remains to stay in this overall move as fast as it's actually going. 12,475 was actually a resistance 3 of a few weeks ago when it came down to, well, not a few weeks ago, last week when it came down to movement. The other area where I would pay attention to just slightly for us being able to get out, we end up being at 11,833. The reason why I'm getting 11,833 is because that's right there, this last little pocket right here before it actually ends up breaking truly out. So if this market gives you a little bit of a retest, if you can be able to get a retest right there, I may end up looking at being able to buy, but it literally just bounced out, and because no volume, it just basically pushed up. I wish I would have took a look at that one before end up taking a look at everything else. But we end up getting in on US 30. Hopefully US 30 has somewhat of that. US 30 has a little bit of room to be able to get out of this overall area because it's still in a high volume pocket. You like what we end up doing? We're done now. One, please make sure that you end up tapping in with us. Make sure that you end up clicking on our like button. For the people that will look at this in the near future, thank you for being able to watch it. Drop in a comment, drop in where you're from, drop in your wins today. Everybody placing for the people that, whether if you watch it today, watch it tomorrow, anything else like that, I want you to type in what win that you end up having. Celebrate yourself as we end up going through and placing this in. We're getting very close to over 500 subscribers. Well, not 500 subscribers, 500 followers for the page. And that's with no ideas being placed out. Go figure. We place some more ideas out. Hopefully we'll be able to actually be able to get that. But like always, make sure that you end up subscribing to everything that we end up doing. I appreciate each and every person that ends up popping in and being able to talk and being able to go from there. Sometimes trading can end up being hard. I just try to be one of those vessels to make it a little bit easier as we go through and try to map our way out of financial freedom. Like always, plan your trade your plan. This will be the last look on US 30 real quick. I think that we may end up being very close to possibly hitting take profit, maybe. Um, let's see. What are we doing on capital? No, that's what on currency. Yeah, we're getting very close to being able to hit it. Hopefully it does. If it starts to get away from me, then I just go ahead and just take the profit real quick. Um, yeah, if it reverts down or anything else like that, tries to sneak back under, I just go ahead and take the quick $20 of profit and then be able to move forward. But like always, make sure that you end up planning your trade, trade your plan. Everybody, y'all have a good one. Take it easy.